Have you ever had to fight for the one you love? Hello, everyone, and welcome to Love Unexpected, a true story that will take you on a romantic journey that I promise will make you smile, sigh, and believe in the power of love. I'm your host, Tom Howie. This amazing story follows a young woman named Dawn Lawson, who had the experience of a lifetime as she traveled through Poland and Ukraine in 1992, shortly after they had become free from communist control. Her adventure is filled with unexpected turns, twists, and revelations sure to capture your heart and imagination. So let's dive into the story of how she found love that she never expected from across the sea. Thank you for joining us. Off we go. Well, Dawn, here we are, season 3.
Wow.
Can you believe it? I know. I tell you what, I'd like to take a little time to recap for those of you who maybe finished season 2 a while back, and we'll see where we are now. But in May of 1992, you went on your dream trip to Poland and Ukraine for 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. You found out you loved the people in those countries, but there was one person that you truly fell in love with, Wiesiek, the keyboard player of the tour. Now, I've had 3 seasons to pronounce his name. Have I finally gotten it right?
Yes, you're good.
By the way, listeners, if you haven't checked out our website, loveunexpected.us, you really need to. We have lots of photos and videos from the tour that visually shares the story being told by these episodes. You can see Dawn dancing, you can hear Wiesiek playing the keyboards, put faces and names to the people in Poland and Kiev along with us. I think there's actually a picture of me, and you'll see why I'm in radio. Let's get back to the story.
Okay.
Dawn, as I recall, the day before you left Poland, you and, we call him V in this country because no one seems to be able to pronounce his name, me included, went to the American Embassy and filed an application for a visitor's visa with the intent that he would visit you in the U.S., meet your family, and plan a wedding together. Mm-hmm. But the embassy turned him down.
Yes.
What did you do? Since V wasn't able to come to the U.S. and anytime soon, I mean, you have your wedding dress, you've started to plan the wedding, but there's no telling when the groom will be able to join you. How did you react to this?
I was devastated. I mean, I'd already been away from Wiesiek for 3 weeks, which, like Tom, that was actually longer than I'd been with him. So I missed him so much that I ached, and my heart already seemed, I guess, to be entwined with his. So when he told me that he was turned down for the visa, I felt like I'd just been punched in the gut. Tom, like up to this point, didn't it seem like we'd faced so many obstacles, but miraculously, every obstacle seemed to be just falling quickly and easy into place for us. But here we were once again with a giant roadblock, and I wasn't sure what to do. However, in a strange turn of events, I have to take you back to when I was in Maryland and I was still teaching. I had felt a sudden need to go to the INS office in that area. I can't tell you why, but I did. And when I went, I told the employee my story, and I asked her what kind of visa that Wiesiek and Sarah would need to come over once we did have the wedding planned, because I realized that they would need a different kind of visa to come, or a second visa. Yeah. So, again, Tom, I knew nothing about visas, but I'm so glad that I did realize that there would have to be a second visa for this trip to the U.S. The employee told me that Wiesiek would need a K-1 visa. And this was years before the show 90 Day Fiancé. So, I mean, I was totally oblivious that there was a special visa that was required for getting immigration status and marriage status. And this was actually before I even saw, the movie Green Card and everything. So it was all brand new to me. The woman at the office also told me that Wiesiek would have to provide all of his legal documents, like, his birth certificate, divorce papers, and such. And that was needed to be translated into English and notarized, as well as having it in Polish. But if you remember, Richard, Wiesiek's brother, could take care of that quickly with no problem because he was a translator and a notary.
Wow.
Yep. So I had this idea, and I also asked that woman at the INS that if we included letters from other people on the trip that testified about the legitimacy of our relationship, would it help Wiesiek to get his visa approved? And she said, well, it couldn't hurt, So I took that K-1 visa application, and that same day I went back to the school and I typed a letter to our American friends from the tour, and I asked them to send me letters that shared about Wiesiek's character and how ours was a legitimate relationship. And I asked them to send me copies of any photos that they had of us. I made about 25 copies of that letter, and I sent them out. Tom, I'm so glad that I acted on that impression that had come to me, because now that his visitor's visa had been denied, I felt like I had to prove to the government that Wiesiek and my relationship was real in order to get him here.
Well, it sounds like you were a woman on a mission, but before you answer that, I'm assuming you didn't include the pictures of when you were giving him the cold shoulder outside the cabin that one night. But you were definitely a woman on a mission.
Yes, I was. I would call it Operation Get Wiesiek Over Here. I decided to petition the U.S. consulate and embassy in Warsaw, as well as my congressman in Washington, D.C., by using those letters from our friends. And I thought, why not plead my case to the government? Maybe I could find favor with them, and they would give a visa for Wiesiek and Sarah.
By the way, for the listeners, the city of Warsaw hosts both the U.S. Embassy and the consulate in one building.
Yes. So I'm not sure, Tom, if I should say embassy or consulate when I'm talking about this. So I'm just interchanging them. So if I'm confusing anyone, I'm just sorry about that. So anyway, Tom, about Operation Get Wiesiek Over Here. This was the strategy that I used to execute my plan. I pulled all the photos of Wiesiek and me from the trip, and I chose the ones, not the ones where I gave him the cold shoulder, but the ones that I thought would best be an example of our progressing relationship and love. And then I typed up a short, 2-page day-by-day summary of the trip that explained how our relationship developed. And thankfully, our friends from the tour had responded by sending me a lot of letters and photos. So I just took all of these and very purposefully arranged each letter and grouped the photos to recreate our story and turned it into a really clear picture of how the relationship developed on the tour. And then I made copies of each letter and the photo groupings, and I shrunk them to decrease the size. And this way I was able to put 2 full-page letters on one sheet of paper and 4 pictures with photo descriptions on one page as well. And then I assembled all the pages, beginning with a plea to let Wiesiek and Sarah receive a visa. And then I put my 2-page summary, followed by the letters and photos. And Tom, it looked like a book when it was done. I mean, this stack of documents telling our story was a hefty 22 pages.
Wow, 22 pages. That sounds like the size of a small book. You said the letters and photos were decreased in size as well. So if you wouldn't have done that, it probably would have been, 50 pages of documents?
Yeah, probably. Gosh, didn't think about that. It also read like a book. It was a love story. So next, I faxed all 22 of those pages to my congressman in D.C., and I also faxed them to the American Embassy in Warsaw, and of course I sent them to Wiesiek as well. I was a woman on a mission, Tom.
Clearly you were, and it sounds like your efforts will be rewarded soon.
I hope so. We didn't know anything then. So now it was up to Wiesiek to fill out the K-1 visa application that I'd sent him, and he needed to dig up all those legal documents and have them translated, notarized, and sent to me as soon as possible.
Well, thankfully, with Wiesiek's brother being the translator and notary, hopefully that'll speed along the process. Loving the show? We'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to follow, share, and leave a review. It helps us reach more listeners and keep the love stories coming. Thank you for your support.
So, Tom, during the month of June, Wiesiek was so good at continuously sending me cards with pictures of Sarah in him. And I remember this one photo that he sent that really caught my attention. It was of him and Sarah walking in a wood path, and he was wearing shorts. And I realized that this was the first time I ever saw his legs. Woo-hoo, Tom.
Wow.
All I could think of was what great legs he had. They were perfectly shaped and just reminded me of this Greek or Roman statue. And I'm just going to be real here, but as a dancer, I looked at legs a lot, and his impressed me.
Ladies and gentlemen, loveunexpected.us. You can see the statuesque legs.
Yes.
But remember, ladies, he's married.
Now, I don't know if distance makes the heart grow fonder, but his photos and cassettes and letters were making my legs weak and my heart race. And he made sure to include Sarah in his communications, which was really nice. Once he even sent me a hand-drawn card that was by her, and it showed two girls hugging and crying. And Sarah told him that it represented her and me missing each other.
That little special detail actually may be my favorite part of your story, that he included his daughter in your relationship. I think that's amazing.
Yeah, I think it was too. Unfortunately, though, he was home alone most of the summer because Sarah went to spend time with her grandparents at their lake house. And because he was home a lot, it seemed that he spent most of his time recording cassettes for me, which was sweet. But Tom, honestly, I just couldn't keep up with him. At one point, Wiesiek actually became worried that I was losing interest in him because I wasn't sending him a cassette almost every day. He didn't know that I was spending so much of my time preparing that book to send to the government or the time planning the wedding. And he asked me to please don't give up on us. Please keep sending me letters and cassettes.
So I have to ask you then, did you ever get any response from your 22-page love fax to the congressman or embassy, or did a publisher decide to publish the book? I don't know.
Well, not from the publisher, but yes, I did get a response. By the beginning of July, I had received a letter from my congressman telling me that he'd contacted the U.S. Department of State about the visa submission, and he said that he would contact me as soon as he received a response from them.
So that must have given you at least some encouragement.
Yeah, it did. And just a few days after I'd gotten this congressman's letter, I walked into the house and my mom handed me a note with a woman's name on it, Jemiah. And Mom told me that this woman, Jemiah, had called from the Department of State in Washington, D.C., and she wanted to talk to me.
Wow. So the Department of State in Washington, D.C. was calling you. Did you even know why?
No. I had no clue. I think it made me rather nervous at that time because, why is Washington, D.C. calling me? I don't know. My mind played out different scenarios as to why she was calling, both good ones and bad ones. Well, thank goodness, Tom, a few days later, I received another call from Washington, D.C., and this time I was home to receive it. Get ready, listeners. In 2025, we're turning up the romance with our brand new podcast, Unexpected Love Stories. With charming meet-cutes and heartwarming twists, dive into the real-life love stories of couples, some that you know and others that you'll love getting to know. Each episode is packed with laughter, surprises, and moments that'll make you believe in love all over again. So I answered the phone, and the caller introduced herself. It was Jemiah again. And thankfully, her voice was kind, so my anxiety was eased just a bit. Jemiah said that my congressman had passed those 22 pages I'd faxed to him on over to the Department of State. And she told me that she and all the ladies in the office had read them and that they all agreed. And again, Tom, this is her words, not mine. This is the most romantic story we've ever read. Let's get this man over here.
All right, positive news.
So now I had hope, and I thought, oh, good, things are looking up. And Jemiah told me that she was going to guide me through the visa process and to follow her directions very carefully. So, of course, I wrote them all down. Well, besides the paperwork that Wiesiek was already working on, she said that he also needed a letter from Sarah's birth mother that declared that even though she'd given up custody of Sarah, that she did realize and have knowledge that Sarah would be moving out of the country. So, Tom, this was the part that I hoped wouldn't be too difficult because Sarah's birth mom was a singer and was often touring, and I didn't know how much contact V still had with her.
Well, that definitely could be a little dicey if she was gone a lot, especially if she was outside the country.
Yeah, and as I understood, sometimes she'd go outside of Poland for up to 6 months. So I hoped V could get these documents from her. I didn't know how long that would take, but Jemiah went on to say that Wiesiek would also have to get an official background check from the police and a medical checkup to clear him of any sicknesses or diseases before he was approved by the embassy to enter the United States. And she also told me that when I received all of Wiesiek's documents, I needed to send them to the INS office in Vermont. She said to send them there because it focuses on visas and that it also needed to include a money order or a visa filing fee.
So we keep using the term INS, and I guess we should let the listeners know that INS used to stand for Immigration and Naturalization Services. It's no longer one department, though. It's now 3 agencies: ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, CBP, which is Customs and Border Protection, and the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, the USCIS, what they usually call that.
There was one important detail Jemiah told me. She said to put a yellow sticky note on the application that asked the INS officer to please wire the visa decision to Warsaw immediately. She said that even though I paid the fee, and it doesn't sound like government, even though I paid the fee, if I didn't specifically ask them to send this notification electronically to Warsaw, that they would put it in snail mail and send it overseas. And that would mean that the letter would take over a week to arrive in Warsaw and then go through the sorting process in the mailroom and perhaps weeks or months later finally get opened and then perhaps acted on.
So a big difference in time, obviously.
Yes, like overnight versus possibly months. And the best part, she said, was that the moment Wiesiek received his visa, he could get on the plane and come to me that very same day. And then she gave me what I'm going to call the fairy godmother caveat. She said, "Oh, and one last thing. When Wiesiek arrives in the United States, you must be married within 90 days, or the visa will expire and you will have to leave the country."
Okay, so this is the fairy tale portion of your story. Does someone turn into a pumpkin? Is that what happens here?
Well, I guess he would have to be a pumpkin going back to Poland. You know, I couldn't have dreamed up this story if I tried. This was truly like a fairy tale. I had a man on the other side of the world that I was crazy about, though I'd spent very little time with him, and he was passionately in love with me. And here we were just slowly getting to know each other through our cassettes and our letters.
That's right, because you guys still communicate primarily through cassette tapes.
Oh, yeah. Yes, that's true.
Should I tell the listeners, ladies and gentlemen, a cassette tape is...
You'll have to go back to last season to find out about that. His cassettes were extremely romantic, Tom. Since he was a musician, he would have jazz music or love songs playing in the background while he spoke to me on his handheld microphone. It was all very professional. He'd say things like, "Good evening, my love." And you'd hear the music, dun, 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 dun. "I miss you so much. Dun, 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 dun. I'm looking your picture. You're beautiful. Dun, 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 dun. I wish you were with me." You know, and I tell you that was enough to melt me every time I received something from him.
And I'd like to remind you, Dawn, this is a G-rated program.
Tom, I'll try and keep it as G-rated as possible. But I have to tell you that my contact with Jemiah didn't end with just that one call. I got more calls from her that summer. It seems like I had become the pet project for the ladies from the Department of State. And thankfully, early in July, Wiesiek had all of his legal papers, his photos, his applications finished and translated and notarized. And Tom, I have to tell you, I was about to receive all of these documents in a way that I could never have anticipated.
Join us Wednesday for the next episode of Love Unexpected. Be sure to click the subscribe and notification buttons for this podcast so you won't miss a single episode. You can really help us boost our listenership by leaving a rating as well as a comment and review wherever you stream this podcast. Please share our podcast with your family and friends so that they can enjoy it as well. They can listen to Love Unexpected on any of their favorite podcast platforms. To see photos and video clips that go along with the story, go to our website, loveunexpected.us. You can find the link to it in the episode guide. We would love to hear from you, so email your comments and questions to our website. We look forward to connecting with you on social media at Love Unexpected on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. Our producer for this show and creator of original music is Joe E.P. Music. Our host, Tom Howie. Our writer is Dawn Prushkovsky. Our media manager is Jean Prushkovsky.